Hey guys, Rocky from USA Kilts here. Today, I'm going to discuss what happens at a burn supper with a focus on hosting one in your own home. This information should also be handy if you're going to attend a burn supper hosted by an organization like a St. Andrew's Society. As you may already know, burn suppers celebrate the life and works of Robert Burns, the national poet of Scotland, famous the world over for his poems and songs. Burns Night is held on or around January 25th, which is Robbie Burns' birthday. It may be the best time of year to embrace your Scottish heritage and have a bit of fun with it. The general tone of the evening is typically one of lighthearted humor, not necessarily a comic roast, but not too stuffy. There's going to be several parts to a burn supper. It's actually not too hard to host one, though. Burn suppers can range from a small intimate gathering to fancy formal dinner parties. I'm going to break this video into 3 parts: planning the meal, the supper itself, and what to wear. If you're interested in learning more about the vendors or things we mentioned in this video, check the description below for links. To start, here's a checklist of what you're going to need: a haggis and the side dishes for the meal, Scottish music, scotch for toasting, some Burns poetry, including his poem To a Haggis, and some tartan for decorating to help set the mood. Part 1. Plan the meal. Burns Night revolves around one thing: food, but you probably already knew that. You'll need to have a haggis, which is the main course for the dinner. If you're a creative cook, there are several recipes online for homemade haggis. Most call for easy-to-get meats like ground lamb instead of the more traditional organ meats. If you're stateside and decide to purchase a haggis, we recommend using the Scottish grocer. It's run by a born-and-bred Scot who makes delicious haggis. They sell them in a few different sizes on their website, depending on the number of guests you're expecting. The rest of the dishes for the dinner are relatively easy to make. At a burn supper, you're going to want to serve a soup, neeps and tatties, whiskey sauce, a vegetable, and a dessert. A starter soup is typically part of the meal. It's usually either Scots broth or cockaliki soup. Another traditional part of the meal is neeps and tatties. Neeps and tatties is basically mashed potatoes and mashed turnips. Whiskey sauce is similar to a holiday gravy that you can pour over the haggis. For the veggies, you can serve any green vegetable you like as a side. We usually suggest green beans and a little bit of butter. Dessert can be either shortbread or clootie dumpling. The dinner will always be served with scotch. Firstly, because it's a natural complement to Scottish cuisine. Second, and more importantly, you're going to be drinking several toasts with it throughout the evening. This can be any scotch you prefer, or consider having more than one so your guests can have a choice. That usually means one peaty one, like an Islay, and one that's not peaty. Part 2. What happens during the celebration? Alright, let's get down to brass tacks. This is what's going to happen during your dinner in chronological order. Piping in the guests. No Burns Night is complete without the sound of bagpipes. Having a piper welcome the guests and escort them into the dining room really sets the tone for the evening and gets the guests excited for what's to come. If you don't know any bagpipers, don't sweat it. This is where a playlist of Burns Night music will come in handy. Have some rousing pipe tunes playing on the stereo while the guests await the beginning of the festivities. Alternatively, you could play some Scottish folk music for a while, and then blast the pipe tune to announce it's time to get started. You can find a lot of Burns songs available for purchase online, and you can even find a few free ones on YouTube. The chairman's welcome. After everyone's seated, the chairman, typically the host, welcomes everyone. If you're uncomfortable with public speaking, you can ask a friend to take on this role, but be sure to coordinate with them beforehand. The chairman formally welcomes the guests with a few words about why we love Robert Burns and how this is a special night. Then, when all's quiet, it's time to read the Selkirk Grace. The Selkirk Grace. This prayer, also known as the Galloway Grace or the Covenanter's Grace, is said to have been delivered by Burns at a dinner given by the Earl of Selkirk on St. Mary's Isle. If you're more adventurous with your Scottish accent, you can check out the Lowland Scots version. I'll be reading the English version. Some have meat and cannot eat. Some cannot eat that want it. But we have meat, and we can eat. So let the Lord be thanked. After the grace, invite the guests to enjoy their soup course. Piping in the haggis. Now, it's time for the guest of honor, that is, the haggis, to make its entrance. If the gathering has a piper present, they'll lead the procession, followed by someone carrying the haggis on a platter. Often a third person will follow, carrying the bottles of scotch. Again, if you don't have a piper, you can simply play bagpipe music as the haggis is paraded in. It's fine if your guests hoop, holler, and applaud upon seeing the dish brought in. The address to the haggis. Now for the real highlight of the event. Also, perhaps the most challenging. One lucky diner gets to deliver their rendition of To a Haggis. When you're choosing someone to read to a haggis, make sure they're outgoing, make sure they're comfortable pantomiming, and make sure they practice. The poem is a little long, and you really want the performer to nail it. Now, keep in mind, they can read the poem, but they still have to do the hand motions, so make sure they're comfortable putting on a show. The actions include calling out members of the audience to represent characters in the poem, pretending to burp, sniffing the aromas of the haggis, and most importantly, cutting open the haggis itself. If your presenter does nothing else, they at least must do this bit. At the end of the poem, the presenter will raise their glass and lead the crowd in a toast to the haggis.
Ladies and gentlemen, the haggis!
Toasts and the immortal memory. Toasting is a big part of burn suppers. You can have these toasts during the meal, perhaps between courses, or you can wait till the dinner's over and give the rest of the evening over to toasting, drinking, singing, and dancing. Either way, the first and most important toast is known as the immortal memory. The chairman or a designated speaker delivers a serious, heartfelt toast that reflects on the life and the art of Robert Burns. It could be a whole speech if you'd like, perhaps a short bio, or it could talk about a specific work that's inspired you or feels relevant to the guests. This speech should be long enough to remind everyone it's not the office Christmas party, but not so long that people start yawning. At the end, everyone stands and raises their glasses to the immortal memory of the Bard of Ayr. The toast to the Lassies. Things lighten up again with a toast to the Lassies. Burns was a great lover of the ladies. Yeah, we'll talk about that another time. Suffice to say, the Bard truly loved the ladies, and it's become customary to raise a glass to all the ladies present at the burn supper. This toast often includes heartfelt compliments or gentle jabs. Again, if you include comedy in the toast, this isn't supposed to be a comic roast, but it's not meant to be too stuffy either. If you have someone game to try it, and it fits well with the flow of the evening, you can also have your toaster recite a few lines of one of Burns' love poems. As a newer piece of tradition, a woman in the crowd will respond to the toast to the Lassies with a toast to the laddies. These toasts can be as romantic or as blue as you'd like, as the women poke fun back at the men. The toasts usually lean toward the bawdy side and are meant to get everyone laughing. Works by Burns. Burns Night wouldn't be Burns Night without a good old sing-along or a few poem recitals. You can do this by having designated performers, or you can do it as more of an open mic night with guests taking turns if they're interested. You might want to encourage your guests to pick a Burns poem ahead of time that they could read at the dinner, but don't make it a requirement, as some people might not feel comfortable reading in front of a group. One easy idea is to have a volume or two of Burns' works handy so you can pass them around for people to read. A couple popular selections are A Man's a Man and A Parcel of Rogues. If poetry recitals aren't your thing, you can always fall back on having those wonderful Burns songs playing on the stereo, and dancing is always encouraged. Finally, there's one last tradition to uphold. No burn supper is complete without the guests joining hands to sing Auld Lang Syne. Usually, that's done at the end of the evening, just like on New Year's Eve. What to wear? With everything else we've gone over, there's just one last burning question. What do I wear? Naturally, since we're a kilt company and this is a Scottish event, we encourage you to wear the kilt. If you want to wear a kilt but don't have one yet, go check out usakilts.com. But wearing a kilt isn't a hard and fast requirement. As we mentioned, burn suppers can be formal or as informal as you'd like. As the host, it's up to you to set the level of dress to make sure your guests are comfortable. You should spell out the dress code for them, whether it be formal black tie with a kilt or just jeans and a t-shirt. Menswear. For the men, the low bar for an outfit would be just something tartan, whether it's a plaid shirt, tartan necktie, or even just clan or Scottish accessories. If you want to host a black tie event, then you'll want to specify black tie or formal Highland dress to the guests. As most burn suppers tend to be somewhere between formal and casual, and since it's the middle of winter, smart day wear, like a tweed jacket and vest, kilt, and leather sporran, make a great outfit for most burn suppers. Women's wear. We get a lot of questions from women about what to wear for a burn supper, especially if they're not Scottish or if it's their first burn supper. Women's dress is actually easier than the men's though. First, just imagine it's a regular date. a regular casual dinner with friends, a regular nice dinner, a regular banquet, or a regular cocktail party. As we said before, check with the host on the appropriate level of dress if it's not mentioned in the invitation. Next, think about what you'd wear to that sort of event. Now all you have to do is add in some Scottish flair. The easiest way to do it is throw on a tartan sash and a brooch. A tartan skirt can also be a great option, or even a tartan dress if you have one. The tartan itself can either be your date's tartan, your own family tartan, or a universal tartan that you just happen to like. There's nothing quite like a Burns night. It's a rich mix of tradition, deep emotions, and just plain fun. However you choose to do it, make it your own. You'll be making memories for yourself and your loved ones that'll last a lifetime. To the immortal memory. If you like this video, be sure to give us a like and a follow. If you're in the market for kilts, Highland wear, or anything tartan, check out our website, usakilts.com.